You're listening to the Run for Your Lives podcast.
Hey everyone, welcome to the show. I'm Daphne.
And I'm Pake.
And this is the Run for Your Lives podcast.
This week we are talking about the American science fiction horror film Deep Blue Sea, directed by Renny Harlin and released July 28th, 1999. And this week again, we have a very special guest to bring along with us, and I'm really happy and excited to get to bring to you guys our good friend, Greg. Welcome to the show, Greg.
Yay!
Thank you very much, and I'm glad to be here.
Yes. You've been somebody that we've always wanted to record with, and I always love it whenever you pop up on different podcasts in Podcastica and our other kind of networks that we work with, Pirate Corner, or whatever you've done, because I'm sure you've heard it a billion times from me and other people, because you know, it's like we hear you talk, it's like Greg has that just radio podcast voice and he needs to use it more, and I'm glad that you starting to branch out and do more stuff.
Yes.
Yeah, I really do enjoy doing this stuff, and unfortunately, life just sometimes gets in the way. But I'm thrilled to be talking about this particular movie.
Yeah, not just the voice aspect. I mean, you definitely have a lot of good thoughts and stuff too. I only love you for your voice, Greg, but not your brain. No,
No. I can live with that.
And as is usual, when we have a guest on, they pick the movie. So Greg picked this movie for us to talk about.
Yes, this was seminal's not the right word, but it was one of the like 90s formative monster movies, and I love it. And watching it now, I'll be really honest, it doesn't really hold up. There's definitely some like old tech alerts in there, and I thought that a lot of the effects weren't horrendous, and I'll talk a little bit about some of them, but as I'm sure you guys will too. But this was a lot of fun, and I actually was a little surprised at how tense this movie made me throughout the movie. Because I mean, whether I'm expecting something or I'm not, or whatever the case is, I was just like, oh God, why am I sweating? I'm just sitting here in my basement. It's like 65 degrees in here. Why am I tense?
Yeah.
But yeah, it was a lot of fun to rewatch.
They did really well with scenes of like suspense and dread and a lot of stuff where even if you've seen it, you're like, I don't know what to do. Like, this was actually my first time watching this movie all the way through, beginning to end. I've seen stuff online and everything, like of course the big iconic Samuel L. Jackson surprise death scene I've seen in GIF and video clip forms billions of times in my life, so I knew it was coming. But still, like, yeah.
Oh, that I think that was this is one of the first like surprise big star, totally unexpected like deaths of like, oh, Samuel L. Jackson, he's gonna come in, he's gonna lead them to, like, he's gonna look at this, he's giving the speech. It's almost like the superhero landing, right? He's gonna give the speech, and then they're gonna do the what just happened?
And he's gone.
Wait,
Yes.
is he really gone?
Yes.
No, I mean, he must have escaped somehow, right? No. Oh.
Yeah, the director actually followed a format that was used in, I believe, Alien, when Tom Skerritt's character was killed off. He was more the big name that was associated with that movie at the time. And so, Renny Harlin thought, okay, well, I'm going to kill off Samuel L. Jackson's character.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, this is post Pulp Fiction fame.
Yes.
And, it's before Snakes on a Plane, where he had really, hit his stride or become so iconic that him being in a movie made it a movie. Obviously pre Nick Fury and all that. But he was established, right? The first thing I saw him in was Jurassic Park. And then Pulp Fiction came out, I think, later that year. And that was just his catapult to fame. And then he's been amazing in a majority of the things that he's been in, but this was definitely one of those whoa, what the? Good God. How are they going to get out now?
Yeah. I love those little moments. And not necessarily a big star power moment, and I won't spoil it, but like when we get to talk about World War Z sometime later on, I'm excited to talk about a certain scene in that movie where it's just that like unexpected kind of blows everything out. Like, whoa, okay.
Yeah.
And those who have seen it will know what I'm talking about, hopefully, but I don't want to say much more until...
I have seen it, and I don't know what you're talking about. It's also been a few years.
Yeah, we just kind of jumped into the zombie genre a few weeks ago with Train to Busan, so we're definitely going to be covering World War Z at some point. That may be the next one that we cover.
Eventually.
Not every week. We're not morphing into a zombie show. We're sticking with our disaster monster focus.
But they fit and they'll show up every now and then.
Yes, they will. We will find a way, because guess what? It's our podcast and we can do what we want.
Yes.
Huzzah.
All right. Well, I think it's about time we start jumping into Deep Blue Sea and have some more in-depth conversation and fun stuff about that. So, Daphne, why don't you kick us off with your behind-the-scenes notes?
All right. Well, this was filmed primarily at Fox Baja Studios in Rosarito, Mexico, which is the same place where they filmed a lot of the Titanic scenes, the water tank, etc. The screenwriter, Duncan Kennedy, grew up in Australia and was inspired to write the story after seeing the gruesome remains of a shark attack victim that had washed up the beach near where he lived.
It's rough.
Yeah. Imagine that. You're out for a leisurely stroll along the beach, maybe collecting seashells or sea glass, and what do you find? Ugh.
Apparently a body.
Yeah, I was about to say it was definitely half of a body, because he was very into doing that to everyone in this movie.
Yes. The limbs were flying. Donna Powers and Wayne Powers also contributed to the rewrites of the script. So we've already mentioned Samuel L. Jackson is the main star power behind this film, but it was also early Thomas Jane.
This was his considered his breakout role. I think this was his first big thing.
Yes, it was. Stellan Skarsgård, a much younger Stellan Skarsgård, is in this film as well. I watched him not that long ago in Chernobyl, where he was pretty fantastic. LL Cool J, who kids of the 80s and 90s will remember his rapping skills. Michael Rappaport and Saffron Burrows plays the lead. The budget for this film, well, it's debatable, somewhere between 60 and 82 million, depending on who you talk to. But the box office brought in 165 million, spawned 2 sequels. One of them was direct-to-video, but a standalone sequel, and the second direct-to-video sequel, which was Deep Blue Sea 3, was connected to Deep Blue Sea 2. But neither of them were connected to this film at all.
One of the big draws to this for me was that it was basically Jurassic Park underwater.
Yeah.
And
kind of, yeah.
Like I couldn't see what they had left of this unless it was like, oh, we have another facility in order to do the same thing, like Sharknado or whatever. But I don't even know that I knew that there were sequels to this until a year or two ago, and I was like, no, I'm not gonna bother.
They came much later. Like the sequels I think were 2018, 2019. Like they were much later than this film.
Okay.
So I mean they're definitely disconnected, and they never hit the box office. So I have not seen them. I don't know that I will.
Yeah, I don't know.
Unless we go down a road of sequels that we've never seen. And yeah,
anything's possible here.
Yeah.
I do love that you called it like Jurassic Park underwater, because I had a lot of those same thoughts. I mean, it's like this like facility, like you said, like with labs where it's like genetically altered or modified kind of animals that are used for, I mean, it's not an amusement park, but it's still kind of a scientific breakthrough kind of thing that they're doing with them. Yeah, and then they get loose, but they're smarter and they're like learning strategies, and like, yeah, it's a lot like the Raptors, where they're, kind of learning and adapting. So, yeah, I do love that.
Well, Deep Blue Sea came in at 105 minutes, and it's once again that time for Pake to deliver a synopsis.
All right. This movie While searching for a cure to Alzheimer's disease, a group of scientists on an isolated research facility become the prey as a trio of intelligent sharks fight back.
Ooh, yes, they did fight back. There was definitely a lot of intensity when it came to the sharks. I think right from the beginning, you could kind of sense something was up. And as we moved through the movie, we learned, that Dr. McAllister and Dr. Whitlock had been up to a few things.
Mm-hmm.
Like even the scenes without humans in them, like they just go underwater and you just and you see the sharks just swimming through the water. Literally just swimming, not before they go and get feeding time, before they, start literally attacking, pack hunting on Thomas Jane. But I don't know if it's necessarily the score or I imagine it's the score, but the music, they want just the very, it just reminds me of Forgetting Sarah Marshall, right? So, ominous tones. Dun. And so, but I thought the score did a really good job of being understated, yet producing that tension in a person watching the movie.
Yeah, the director was pretty inspired by Jaws. He wanted to create something similar to Jaws, but he also wanted the sharks to be seen a lot more. And
well, I was a little surprised that it showed. Because I saw this and it was one of my favorite movies back in the mid 2000s, but when I watched it and you saw the shark in the first scene, I was like, oh shit, I totally forgot about that. So I was like, oh my God, I forgot.
Yeah, I had that because I was just like, we're not going the Jaws route with one. There's a lot of nods to Jaws and stuff that they took from there, except for it's like, oh no, we're going to get to see the shark right off the beginning. We don't have to wait half the movie before we see it.
No, definitely not. No, he wanted people to see the shark. He even did, there were a bunch of nods to Jaws, which we've mentioned. And once we get to production notes, I've got a couple of them written down because there were some kind of cool cues to an homage to Jaws.
All right. So. Well, I think it's time to go ahead and get into our top three. We do this a lot. I say this every time we have a guest, but just to make things run a little smoothly, we kind of do a top three format instead of going through characters and everything. That we all get to talk about the things we liked the most, and usually we cover just about everything. And if we don't, we got extra notes we can talk about at the end. And Greg, as our guest, we will let you go first. So what do you have as your number three?
All right, I will go ahead and steal the headline. Right. I'm just going to label this one science.
All right.
And all of the science, right? I like the fact, I say I like, something that I have noticed is it's whenever they are going to some crazy lengths to do something, it's always to cure something that we still, 22 years later, still haven't found. Basically, hey, what's a disease that we're not even close on? We're not even approaching a cure for. That's what we'll do. We'll Alzheimer's, excellent. We really don't have a damn clue what's going on with this and how to fix it. So how can we this is something that we're definitely this is going to hold up because of this concept. And then the hey, I'm just going to pull some brain fluid from the frontal lobe and I'm going to drop it on, I'm assuming what was brain matter, because they talk about neurons and whatnot, that is in suspended animation, just sitting on a microscope. And then it's going to start firing and you're going to see lightning for 6.5 seconds. And I was just like, this is some really simplistic, they made it something complex enough that, hey, we don't know what's going on with Alzheimer's. We don't necessarily know how to stop that degeneration, but we also we need to make it simple enough for it to, for the layperson to just be able to be like, oh, okay. Yeah, sure. I kind of understand. I give a slight explanation, like a 6-word explanation of what we're looking for and how we can tell if it's working or not. And then we see that and yes, everybody's super happy and all that. Okay. And they pulled 4.5 cc's out of that shark and they dropped 2 cc's onto this small bit of tissue. I have no idea how much they would need to reactivate an entire brain, but it just seemed a little like I'm going to have to completely replace the brain. Yeah. Anyway, that was just, like I said, the science to me,
where it doesn't have to make sense, just has to sound good.
Yes.
And then I was waiting. Last night when I was rewatching it again, I was waiting for the moment of like, oh, we spliced in some T-Rex, genes, or something, right? Oh, well, elephants have really, big brains because they're giant animals, or whatever the case is, and we inserted some of that DNA, or some sort of other predator or whatever. And I mean, I didn't particularly care for the explanation of, well, the brains got bigger and so they got smarter. I was just like, come on, you can give me something a little bit more than that. But so that was the genetics, and then what they were trying to do, even as simplistic as it was, I thought was effective. Yeah. Because you really aren't here for the genetics or the science. Yes. You're here for the shark.
100%.
So you're just like, it doesn't have to make sense as long as it's enough to further the plot and get me like, okay, that's what they're doing.
Yep, exactly. Yeah. I mean, but I was just like, hashtag science.
Well, the director was, he was kind of open about it. He said that, on a lot of the shark information and other stuff, it's not very accurate, and we took a lot of liberties. And he owned it. So I thought that was kind of neat.
Sure. Yeah, absolutely.
It's like, that's how you make an entertaining, like, thriller horror movie. Like,
you make something that is still entertaining 25 years later.
Yeah, definitely.
Sure. All right. Daphne, do you want to go next?
I will go next. And mine kind of morphs into our usual character information, but sticks with the top three. And I'm going with Preacher, a.k.a. LL Cool J, as my number 3, because he needed to be in this movie. He made this movie for me. Like, the fun, all the fun that his character brought. I mean, you have to have some comic relief in some of these films. If you're going to have a big action film, and I feel like most of the action films that we've covered, the ones that are monster flicks, they have that one person who's like the comic relief guy. Well, I feel like that was what LL Cool J was for this. And before this time, he'd had a few other parts, but I knew him mostly from his music.
I'm going to knock you out. Mama said knock you out.
Yeah. So it was really cool to see him in a role like this, because it wasn't what I expected. I mean, his dialogue was it definitely was one of my favorite parts of this film. I mean, he loses his bird, the bird that's like needling him the whole first part of the movie. Gets eaten by a shark. And he gets pissed off, Then he hops at one point. He gets stuck in the oven by a shark, which is crazy.
Again, science.
Yes, exactly. The shark starts the oven because he's so smart. And, Preacher is inside the oven, and basically, he's like, I'm not Daniel when he faced the lion, so I appreciate the irony, Lord. Cook dies in his own oven, but I've got other plans. And I'm just like, yes, thank you for being in this movie, because I needed this comic relief. Because if I didn't have it during the rest of it, I was so tense watching it. I needed just that little bit to kind of let all the anxiety out.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I mean, and there were no like, gut-wrenchingly funny and just laugh out loud, knee-slapping reactions.
No.
But like you said, there was enough humor to release a little bit of tension, especially when he became okay again. And the fact that he's the first motherfucker to kill a shark.
He killed two out of 3 sharks.
Yeah.
Which I thought was amazing. I loved that. And, his character wasn't even supposed to live.
Mm-mm.
But they decided they liked having him around so much that they let his character live. Although there are other stories that he had a no-kill clause in his contract. But
that's what I've heard specific to this movie. I've also heard that he has had like, hey, I'm not going to join a movie. I'm not going to be a black guy that just gets killed.
Yeah, I've heard it's kind of become like an urban legend
Mm-hmm.
in a way. And I looked into it because there's like this urban legend that's like he's got like in his contract where he can't die in movies, but anywhere that I've looked, it's unconfirmed or unproven. Like that's not a thing because he has died in movies before.
Mm-hmm.
But I think that he's not super open to taking roles that he knows aren't going to be for a long time because he doesn't want to fit that stereotype all the time. I think so I do think it plays a role in like the parts he takes, but I think the whole like it's in his contract that he can't die in a movie is just like this weird urban legend that's taken off and a lot of people think it's fact. But,
because I read an article and basically the production team said he was so much fun to have around on set that they
that's
had
awesome.
To keep him because he was making everybody happy. And he did a lot of his own stunts, which was kind of cool. I never thought about that.
Yeah, like the stunts in general, like just thinking, like even jumping over, like assuming that everything in the water was all made of foam, so he couldn't accidentally pierce his eye or whatever. Like even jumping over stuff like that takes physical prowess in order to dive over a certain area or land in a certain spot. If he did the one where he was on top of or on the side of the shelving unit when it fell over on him. I mean, like those are like, hey, respect to him for doing that, because that stuff is not a lot of fun. Like it's not fun for me when I just stub my toe and like I can't imagine falling down 12 or 15 times in order to try to get all of the takes.
So I had to go with my number 3 had to be LL Cool J, and what he brought to the role as Preacher. I just thought that he was great.
I did notice that he kind of played like the Will Smith-esque, where he was a major character in the movie, like in Men in Black, right? So Men in Black, he obviously starred in the movie, and then he did the song to the movie, and then used that, and then in the credits there is the LL Cool J song about sharks.
Yeah, the deeper bluer, or deeper.
Yes.
Like,
yeah. Like I listened to a little bit of it. I was like, okay, I'm good. But yeah, I mean, I was like, oh, he's like almost making it a brand.
Yeah.
He was just a ton of fun. So I'm glad he was in there. We needed that levity. We really did. So
I will keep the conversation on him going because he also was one of my points. So I will just move that to my number 3 and continue on with what you were saying.
Wonderful.
Is just to kind of, fill in with some of the stuff. We get his real name other than Preacher or Preach, as most people are calling him, in his little kind of final goodbye video. He mentions his name is Sherman Dudley. And I love that video because it's kind of, it seems because, he's like, I try to be a good husband and father and man of God. And he's got this whole, and so you think like it's going to be this real touching, thing to his loved ones. And then he's like, so the thing that I need to get off my chest and say to everybody is, this is how you make the perfect omelet. And he starts going, and it's just like an omelet recipe. He's like, 2, not 3 eggs. A lot of people want to add milk to it, but that is a mistake. Like
I do in fact add milk to my son's eggs for density. But like that's okay, sure. I mean, I don't like eggs. Like I don't like the flavor of eggs, so I couldn't tell you what the perfect omelet is, but I will take his word for it.
Yeah. All right. Yeah, but I love that. It was just so like perfect. You were talking about kind of the like subtle comic relief that he plays, and I think that's a big moment of that is this like video where he turns it into a omelet recipe. I think is great. And then he just has like these great moments of him walking down the hallway with water coming in through doors, and he's talking to his bird or himself or to God, and he's just having like these moments. And that kitchen scene was really cool. You get the effect while he's climbing the shelving unit, and you see the door kind of swing open, showing that the shark had come in. I thought that was really fun. And then he's got that whole moment. Unfortunately, bye Birdie. That was kind of sad.
Eat me, asshole.
Yeah. Oh God, he was pissed. Too, about that bird. He was pissed.
So he hides in the oven shark manages to turn it on. You mentioned that, but then he climbs out, and then using the fumes from the oven and the gases in there, he just blows the shark into chunks, which is
just saying, awesome. Suspension of disbelief. The Zippo would be completely soaked, and you would not be able to light it. But okay, you know what? Hey,
there's a lot of those things.
It was a decent. I mean, the end was. I was like, what? Anyway, yeah, we'll get there. Yeah. But no, I agree. Like, LL Cool J was and honestly, and I didn't think about it until you were talking about it. Like, he almost played the Tom Hanks role from Castaway in this, where he was by himself for a majority of the movie.
Mm-hmm.
Like, at least the first half, he was by himself, outside of when he's chiding Samuel L. Jackson for being a black man and finding new ways for black men to die. He's by himself once everything goes to shit.
Yeah.
And at that point, hey, like, you're screwed. Like, hey, go figure it out on your own. You have no scientists. You're a fucking cook.
Yeah.
And you managed to kill a shark and then escape. So good on you, man.
Yeah, it was great. And then, of course, when the rest of the team is like completely shit out of luck, and that's the end, they're sitting there on that ladder. That's when he shows back up with everybody else. And the right time, just walks through the door like, oh, hey, guys. Looks like I made it here just in time. Don't go the other way. It's all flooded. Yeah.
Yeah. But you can come up here. I'll tie some things together and we'll be able to get you up.
Yeah, it's great. And then I thought that, the moment that he was closest to dying was when they finally float back up to the surface using fire extinguishers as, distractions and stuff. And then he gets nabbed anyway, which you were talking about doing his own stunts. I'm pretty sure he didn't do that stunt because that stunt man looked like a completely different person. I'm going to Google that, like, please don't tell me they put some old white guy in blackface for this stunt. I couldn't find anything that said that that's what they did, but I was like, ooh, that didn't look anything like him at all.
I'll be honest, I didn't even notice because I was like, oh God, you have a shark biting your crotch. Mm-hmm. Like, you had one leg out, one leg in.
Yeah.
And oh God, that sucks.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, not 100% sure why the shark didn't just bite down, but whatever. Okay, hey, whatever.
Yeah, we've seen they there for dramatic effect. Bite somebody in half like cheese, real easy. Yeah. So,
oh yeah.
Unless he had plot armor on, that's what that was.
Yeah.
But yeah, so that's I think that's all the notes really I had on him. But kind of worked out. You're talking about him. I was like, you know what? I'll just move that point to my number 3, and we'll get there.
All right. So my number 2 was kind of the common tropes to. I mean, I know I referred to it as Jurassic Park, but okay, what do we need in order to create a really crappy situation? We need a relatively isolated place. Okay, check, out in the middle of the ocean. We need a skeleton crew. Oh, we'll just invent a reason that, hey, they go home on the weekends, no big deal. All right, cool. We need some sort of natural disaster. Okay, like a storm. Hey, Jurassic Park did it and did it well, so we'll do that. And then obviously we need some sort of human error. And very specifically, the human error here was the very ill-advised helicopter rescue in the middle of a horrendous storm.
Right.
Like, if that helicopter doesn't go down, basically, like, if the Coast Guard is, or the rescue center or whatever is actually smart, and I get it, people have to make poor decisions in order for some of these movies to work as movies. But, like, are you serious? You're gonna fly through I mean, hey, I get it. He needs medical attention. The one guy may die, and that really sucks. But he shouldn't have been smoking a fucking cigarette right next to a goddamn shark. Just saying. I'm just saying. Like he you could almost be like, hey, he got what he deserved. Like,
well, exactly.
He created it, and then he got killed by it. Like, it would be like if Dr. Wu had been eaten in one of the Jurassic Park movies, right? Sorry, spoilers. Dr. Wu may or may not get eaten.
Who knows?
But yeah, so, like, hey, the genius behind the creation of, we'll call them monsters, but honestly, they're just creatures, right? We refer to them as monsters, but who's the monster? Is it the person who genetically modified a living creature, or is it the creature itself? Like, who is the monster? Dr. Frankenstein or the monster? So, I mean, Frankenstein, dies at his monster's hand, and or at least gets his arm bit off. And I'll be honest, though, I really loved Stellan Skarsgård's death, even if he wasn't really doing anything except for, basically having a ball gag on and just shaking his head really hard. Please tell me what that is. Oh my God. And you see the shark coming into, I'm not 100% sure that they would be able to get enough force to crack a plate of glass that thick, but okay, sure. But yeah,
it's super strong, and he's using a guy's face.
Yeah, it's literally okay. I mean, sure, I guess there's some steel in there, but there's gonna be water drag because he threw it. He literally, the shark threw it. Yeah. It's not like he bashed into it; he threw it. Anyway, and then his face up against the glass and the crack, and he's just like. Brr, 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 brr.
So sad, though. I mean, really, you saw his girlfriend's face. She was just devastated.
I mean, first she had to watch him get his arm bit off, and then watching it. Hey, we've almost saved him, and then oh God, we had to watch him get dropped back into the water. I don't think that they saw that. They had no idea. They thought that he was gone, and then he's just in the water flying towards them, and now he is the tool of the shark to get to them. And so the doctor or the evil genius dying at your creation's hand, the 90s explosions, oh my God. when the helicopter hit those tanks, and I can only assume that they were like that because of the storm, and they shut off all the fuels being stored in those. And that's why it went up as hard as it did. And, but when you are looking at just from the aerial view, it looked like a scene. It looked like Nakatomi Tower exploding and just into the sky, just that really bright orange and black, just throwing fire and explosion at you. And and it was, you're just like, holy shit, yes. Although no, because that's horrible for the poor people in this. Well, they kind of deserve it because I guess we hadn't found out that they deserved it yet. But
except for Brenda, my homegirl Brenda, I loved her so much. I was a huge fan of her. She just wanted to dance and party and live life. And
I don't remember the actress, but I remember seeing her in quite a few things, and I've always enjoyed her characters. She's always played the kind of slight comic relief and whatnot. And her being blown, that was another part where she got blowed up. She just you see the silhouette of her being blown backwards, very Linda Hamilton in T2.
Yeah, that's Ada Turturro, and she actually
Sopranos.
Sopranos, yep, she played Janice Soprano.
Yeah, that's where I recognize her from. She was a lot of fun in the short period of time that she was in this. But then you had and I get it. Their formulas because they work, right? You had the comic relief in LL Cool J. You had the resting bitch face doctor. I mean, when Saffron Burrows smiles, lights up a room, but she almost through, I'd say 90% of this movie has just don't fucking talk to me vibe. The evil genius, and then the
secretive,
the white collar executive who comes in. To me, it was like the lawyer in Jurassic Park was Samuel L. Jackson. He died about the same time frame when shit started going wrong. So there were a lot. Maybe they're not tropes, but they were parts of the formula, and that's one of the reasons that it reminded me so much of a fantastic movie in Jurassic Park, and this one was absolutely thoroughly enjoyable. So that's my number 2.
Nice. Yeah, You mentioned, going back, there was a note I had about the helicopter thing. Because you mentioned, why would it be flying in this storm? Because I was like, you would think with like, and again, that's movie logic versus logic. You got to separate. Because like you think like a research facility this big and this in depth, especially when it's out in the middle of the ocean where storms like that are gonna happen. They should have like a medical area set aside with a doctor fully on staff at all times in that research facility just for that reason.
You've got giant sharks.
It's an accident waiting to happen.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
To be real.
All right. Well, Daphne, what do you have for your number 2?
My number 2 actually is like the animatronics and the hit or miss CGI.
Hit or miss, you say?
Hit or miss.
Where were the hits?
CGI. I didn't.
I missed those. Those were my misses for the hits.
Yeah, there weren't really any hits. I guess I wanted the opportunity to kind of cheerlead the animatronics in this because I remember back when we covered Jaws a while. Oh gosh, I think episode 11.
Yeah, it was a long time ago because I listened to it and it was awesome. But
I remember us talking about all the problems they had with the animatronics on Jaws. They didn't really have those problems with this film. Like they were able to me, the practical effects and the animatronics were wonderful. The CGI, on the other hand, yes. One case is when the doctor is on the gurney and he's flying at the screen and you see the glass start to shatter and you see one piece come out. I thought, okay, this is good. And then the whole thing shatters and I'm like, oh no, it's not so good. Not so good. And we've talked before about how practical effects are always better.
Yeah.
Not almost always. They're always better than CGI. And in this case, I mean, this was really a walking poster for how CGI can look dated.
For sure. CGI was rough.
It was real rough.
Yeah. I mean, I get it. We're looking at it from the viewpoint, from the hindsight's 2020, right? And
2021,
hindsight is 2021. But like in '99,
this was cutting edge.
That wasn't bad.
No,
like,
not at all.
Like specifically the sharks attacking either side of the netting where Thomas Jane was in the middle.
So I think they used animatronics for some of those shots that looked better.
They did.
Well, like the far away one, the far away one where then they like backed up and then like, oh, he pointed the gun at him and they backed up and I was like, okay, that's not great.
Yeah.
But okay, all right, whatever. I'm not super worried about it. There were no to me completely and utterly glaring like, oh God, that was a glitch. That was not a production. That was a misfire. Yes, absolutely. It's dated. And you can absolutely tell that they don't have the quality of computer graphics that we have now. But from the, like, I like the fact that they use that as like far away things. Now, yes, the glass cracking, that was a little, it was not great. But my understanding is that is how thick glass would actually break. Like it would be a certain chunk.
Yeah.
Like, and then the weak point would actually shatter from the inside out. So like logically, okay, sure. But yeah, the visuals there were not great. But I thought that the actual sharks, I wouldn't be able to tell you outside of the like very obvious sharks tearing apart people in the middle of the ocean. Like, okay, yeah, that was somebody in a lab looking at a computer going, yeah, we'll make it look like this. And then then we'll have like the leg fly up.
Breaking up. Franklin. Yeah. After the shark pulls Franklin down, another shark comes along and they break him in half.
Yes. Lost World style.
Yeah.
Yeah. Not great. However, there were also some things that they did in addition to the animatronics. after they were done shooting, they took them down to Bermuda, I think. No, the Bahamas, and had the actors swim with sharks. And they took more footage from that to superimpose into the film.
And there's a scene Thomas Jane is swimming with that shark and like holding onto its fin like at the beginning. That was real. That was a real shark.
That was real.
Oh, that's really neat.
So they did some clever, unconventional, clever things, I think, in order to get some of the cool scenes were actually sharks. It was just my biggest problems were honestly when the sharks were eating people. It just,
I mean, yeah, I know it did not look like sharks actually eating people. I will defend them to a point, but
I have to praise the animatronics though. I feel like did a great job.
And a lot of its budget was stuff. I mean, because I was gonna say, I mean, like Jurassic Park was 6 years before this, and that CGI that they use still holds up today. But it's also Spielberg with a lot more money behind it versus
Additionally, there though, I feel like a lot of the CGI in that was not hardcore action CGI. Right. It wasn't people interacting with things. The CGI was we're just establishing the Brachiosaurus or the Ultrasaurus or whatever walking around. Beautiful, absolutely beautiful. But it's also something you could draw on a picture and then and turn into a cartoon, and then render that and make it look amazing, not necessarily trying to have them interact with people. Again, not nowhere near comparison this movie to Jurassic Park, but I will defend a little bit of it. They did try some new things, which I could totally appreciate.
Yeah, they definitely did. So that's my number 2.
Awesome. My number 2, I'm going back into another character thought here. And she may not be the most popular. She may not be the most liked, depending on who you're talking about. But yes, the character of Susan McAllister. Again, it was one of another fun little tidbit is the original version of this movie actually had her surviving at the end. And test audiences did not like that because they felt like everything was her fault and she didn't deserve to survive at the end. And so they rewrote the ending where she sacrifices herself and does get eaten at the end. And people liked that better.
Did either of you was the original ending? I don't know if I know, or I don't know if you guys know, but was the original ending like that the shark like recognizes the mother, or that she was never in the water?
I don't know. I'm not sure exactly how they
like. I mean, there was a second that I was like, I don't know what's going on here. Like I knew the second time I watched it, but when I first watched it, I was like, is she gonna? Oh nope, there she went. All right.
Yeah, there it is.
So I thought that Saffron Burrows did a great job with the character she was given. The Ice Queen, as the Ice Queen, she was fantastic, and she actually kind of played a similar role in Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. that I just started rewatching.
Oh yes,
and and I was like, oh my god, is that Saffron Burrows? Plus 15 years. That's and I like her a lot. And I thought that her, again, science, standing on a wetsuit while holding a 440 volt, thing in a literally covered in water. Don't get me wrong. I am a red blooded man and I can appreciate, a beautiful woman undressing down to her basically bikini wear, and standing there in full view of a big ass shark. But I just don't know if that science holds up, because the moment that touches any water, you're holding the wet cable. Come on, give me something.
It's in my notes. Is I have it where I say, let's see if I can find. Why did things get all mixed around? But she goes back for the data and has a nice rendezvous with the shark, and then she takes her clothes off because in the 90s. Shocking. No, literally, she pulls a wire off the wall, executes the shark. Seared shark steaks, anyone?
So I didn't notice it until this rewatch, but I didn't realize that she fried her data as well. When she fried the shark, and then then I was like, when I watched it again, I was like, oh, so she just literally everything that she sacrificed for all this is screwed.
Yeah.
Yeah. for sure. But yeah, the character was interesting. Because yeah, you like really sympathize with her at first because that's where we first see her. Is she's bringing, we kind of find that she's been working with the Aquatica base for a while. They all know her really well, and she has gone to kind of enlist Russell Franklin to I guess like help fund and figure out some of this stuff. So he need to come down and see what's going on. But yeah, it's her plan, and she gives that great speech of losing somebody to Alzheimer's, and saying her dad had like it just got to the point where every day he'd wake up and wonder where his wife was, and she'd have to daily remind him that she was dead, and having to see him go through that every day was rough. And that's a hard like thing, and that's a hard story, and so you really want to sympathize with her. But then you get kind of that like Jurassic Park twist. It's funny that we keep making that comparison, but that's where it's like, oh, but now you've gone a little bit too far, and you're starting to, you're breaking the like codes of genetic interference.
Was it the Hartford Code? Or the Hartford Convention or something like that?
Something like that.
It was basically like violating a principle, the Geneva Convention, and torturing a prisoner of war. That was the way that I viewed it. Like, this is something that everybody agreed to.
It was serious.
Yeah, like even if your like intentions are good, at this point, you're breaking like global like laws on like genetics and what you can do with animals and what you can do with things. And she's put all of these people in danger by doing that, because we see, what happens when Whitlock gets his arm ripped off is because I guess whatever, she's basically given these sharks superpowers. They're super sharks. So like even though, Carter tranquilizes the one and brings it up, but that it doesn't last. He doesn't stay under very long because he's got this like super like regenerative brain. And that's kind of what causes everything to go off, because then that same like shark, leaves, and then and everything sets off.
And then she refuses to let him die, or like refuses to let him kill the shark that has just killed or bit off Whitlock's arm. So like one thing that I think that the use of Alzheimer's in this was that opening scene, or well, I guess the second scene, where because that is a story that will resound with people who have had that experience, and and they are not listening to her story. They're thinking of their own stories, or they're thinking of the stories of their people.
Oh yeah, I'm in that same boat. I lost a grandmother to Alzheimer's, and then just degeneration from that after. And I remember as a kid going and visiting her and the nursing home she was in, and going with my dad, and her looking at her own son, my dad, and not recognizing him as her son, but thinking that he was her twin brother that had died years and years before.
Oh my God.
And so I've seen it. Yeah. So I know it is for sure a heartbreaking situation.
But I think that's what kind of gave you that initial sympathetics, like not just that happened to her, but she's trying to do something about it, and she's on the verge, and she thinks that she can do it. And I don't think she was going to enlist help. She was going for damage control, because the shark had attacked the boat, and which I thought was really, I mean, it's one of my notes, but the fact that they subverted my expectations, where the people having sex on the boat didn't die in the opening scene.
Yeah, nobody died.
Oh,
I was like, oh,
I couldn't remember.
Me neither. I was absolutely expecting for a limb to be lost or whatever.
Yeah, they're playing with all that stuff with the wine going into the water, like the blood. But yeah, I was just like kicking off with that classic horror trope. We were talking about tropes earlier. It was like of, young hot people having steamy moments together. Of course, to be interrupted by something that wants to kill them. Yes.
But yeah, so I think that I think that that the character was, obviously fundamentally flawed. And one of my notes with regard to her was, how far are you, like, where's the line with regard to, hey, 4 people have already died, but if we don't get this information out, then then they died for no reason. Okay, so how many people how many sharks do need to die in order for you to continue to experiment on them and genetically enhance them and give the super soldier serum to make them bigger, better, faster, stronger.
Yeah, and then they didn't even mention this in the movie. Really think about it. It was like, okay, if it had those effects on the sharks, then what happens when you start administering those proteins into human brains to regenerate those? Then does it have these weird effects on people? Like, okay, you don't have Alzheimer's anymore, but now you want to murder everybody within a 10-mile radius of you.
That's
like,
a whole other movie.
They never got to clinical testing on those. They addressed that in Deep Blue Sea 7.
Don't joke. They could come out with it. You never know.
Yeah. So she was your number 2 pick?
Yes.
All right. So I'm going to go with, for my last one, and it's like sharks characters. Like, I'm just going to say the cast, the cast in general and the ensemble cast of it, where you did in fact have, a bunch of the stereotypes. You had the comic relief in Michael Rappaport, who I was actually super sad to see him die.
Yeah, I love Michael Rappaport so much. He's such a fun guy.
He can be like, who are you going to trust? Me, because I'm trustworthy. Like he is a fun actor in general. And little have I seen him in where it's not like he's a secondary character or whatever. He's definitely been a fun supporting character. He was good comic relief. Him and was Scoggins or Scods or something like that.
Yeah, Scoggins was his character.
Yeah,
but him and Preacher, their interactions, and then Whitlock and I don't know, the blonde,
Janice.
Yeah, Janice. Yeah, Janice, and then Thomas Jane and Carter and Susan.
Yeah,
and I mean, it's like I feel, and then obviously Samuel Jackson. I don't remember his name, but then his story, like Franklin. And then his story about how when the avalanche, you think this is dangerous. Wait till you see, wait till you see ice. It moves like it has a mind of its own. I was like, and watching it again, knowing what's going to happen, I'm just like, oh man, this is super. This is like super premonition-y. No. Yeah. Whatever the word is that we're foretelling. But like I thought that as a cast in general, they worked well together. You had a lot of people pair off together, and those worked. And then obviously the interaction, like I kept waiting for, like, you saw all the portholes in each of the, I don't know why each room had portholes. I don't know why you'd want to be terrified, going to sleep at night, like a shark's just watching you. But I kept waiting for like an eye to pop up at one of those portholes. But yeah, like I thought that the cast really gelled well together, and it seemed like, at least in part, they had fun doing it. They definitely had chemistry between the characters. And then, like you said, Ada Turturro, was that Janice?
Ada Turturro played Brenda.
And Brenda at the party beforehand. It was they just looked like they had a lot of fun together. Even I would have loved to have watched some of like the making of scenes and maybe seen interviews or whatever like they do now back in the day. Yeah, so like that was my number. Oh, that's what I'll put down as my number 3, because I thought that the cast of characters and the enjoyment that it seemed like the characters had, even the ones who were only in it for a short period of time, like the interactions between them were really good.
Yeah, there's a lot of like fun little behind the scenes stuff, which I don't know everything that Daphne has in her production notes, so hopefully I don't step on too much. I was like looking through, like I don't think this stuff. But yeah, so like they had fun together, but there was like a moment, like there was like a mistake that ended up making it into the movie where, the scene with like the helicopter stuff where like that big wall of water like washes them all, and like you see the cast, like they get like pushed up against those boxes and stuff. That wasn't supposed to happen. They really had like all these like just a bunch of water dumped on them, and like they almost fell into the ocean or the water, the big pool wherever they were filming.
Looked real.
The tank there. Real. They almost, because it was. And it was like Samuel L. Jackson was talking about that. He went back when he finally saw the finished film. He's like, oh, they left that in, because we were mad that day when it happened. But like, but they kept acting through it. And so it made a good thing. And then, we talk about Janice, because like her relationship with Whitlock, originally she was supposed to be pregnant in the movie.
Oh my God.
And they took that. They took that out because the director decided that killing off a pregnant woman was a little too far. So
why is a pregnant woman on the skeleton crew? Come on, what are you doing?
Yeah, right.
She's literally monitoring a heartbeat. That could be anybody.
Despite it being this terrifying place, watching them all getting along so well and having fun, I mean, it must have been a cool place to work.
Yeah, I mean, like, no, I agree. I absolutely agree. Like, it seems like as a group, they enjoyed each other's company. They had obviously done this weekends before. Some of them, like, they were going to have their poker game in Janice's cabin or whatever, like tomorrow night or whatever it was. And it seems like they all got along. And I mean, they had a birthday party, for Christ's sake. I mean,
yeah.
Like these people had all worked together closely for an extended period of time. And because of that, I think it kind of shone through in the class or in the film.
All right. Daphne, what did you have as your number one?
Well, my number one actually is the story behind the sharks. We kind of already talked about this, but there were so many things with this, you know, the movie plot and the story itself. And it has been compared to Jurassic Park before, because as we've talked about, genetically altered creatures escape during their enclosure during a tropical storm. When the facility has a skeleton crew, it all sounds familiar. Samuel L. Jackson was in both, you know, there are those similarities. But I thought it was kind of cool, like the different things that we saw with the sharks. Like, they were afraid of Blake's gun when he was going to shoot them. They were swimming backwards, which actually I don't think is possible.
Not at all.
They disabled the cameras and, you know, turned on Preacher's oven.
I think that was an accident. I don't think he intentionally turned on the oven. I think that was a happy accident for the show.
Yeah. Just kind of bumped it while thrashing. And it was just
cooking the cook. Okay. So, and then the last thing is really like the sharks using them to flood the facility and lower the fences so they could escape. So they herded them there and they did that. And I mean, I thought that was kind of interesting.
I almost had that as my number one, as in the not just superpowered sharks, but super genius sharks. Because what are we going to do? Okay, we're gonna scare them, and then they're gonna send a helicopter, but we're gonna take advantage of the storm that we can sense is coming because, you know, we're sharks, and like this is a very, very complex. Like if this was a heist movie, I'd be like, there's way too much that could go wrong for this stuff. Don't get me wrong, they took advantage of a natural thing. They're just waiting for they're testing the fences. They are, you know, the titanium on the bottom. I don't know that they know that it's not titanium on the top, but whatever. And yeah, I did think that like what's the sharks end game? Oh, the deep blue sea. They did a lot of stuff. Like you had to plot that out significantly to figure out each consecutive step. Now, maybe again, once they're like, oh, here's this body in the floor that happens to be this guy that I know, you know, I just bit his arm off. So, you know, I'm going to go ahead and ram him into this thing, and I'm pulling the helicopter and exploding the facility. Maybe it wasn't their plan, but maybe they just took advantage of it as it was. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I did think that the concept of the sharks masterminding the destruction of the facility was a little far-fetched, but you could make the argument that they just took advantage of the situation as it came.
Yeah, more adaptive of like, oh, well, now we can do this and now we can do that.
Well, you know, they're so smart. Maybe they should have been doing all the research themselves.
If you'd asked them, maybe you'd be like, hey, sure, take some shit from my brain, but give me an extra, you know, cow or whatever.
Well, it probably pissed them off so bad. That's why they decided to do this. They didn't want a needle in their brain anymore.
I was trying to figure out how you stab something in the brain with a needle that weighs, you know, 8,000 tons. And like, you're like, or I guess 8,000 pounds, 4 tons. That makes sense. Mm-hmm. But yeah, I was just like, whoa, like that's, you know, oh, bad dreams. Are you fucking kidding me? Trank that fucking thing again.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's moving at all. We're not good enough.
Yeah. So that's my number one, because I just feel like I've not seen, Other than Jurassic Park, which I feel like we saw the raptors getting really intelligent and able to do lots of things, I feel like this one, the story really was about... It was about the characters, but I feel like these sharks were a character on their own.
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
And what they did, being so super intelligent, I'm surprised they didn't learn to jump over what was left of the fence.
Just trying to figure out how they could like jump up with Janice and her in their mouths, but they couldn't jump over like the 4 foot of fence.
I know,
right?
Yeah,
just leap.
Jump up.
Free Willy.
Yeah, that's exactly what I was about to say. Free Willy.
So, Peg, what was your number one?
My number one was the Super Sharks. Yeah, as we were talking about that.
All right.
Yeah, to see what else, what other notes that I had on there that we haven't talked about, which I think we've pretty much talked about all of it. So these test sharks, I think they're getting more aggressive and everything as well. It was funny because we talked about the science stuff, because I was like, so they're having their brains strengthened to create the protein that regenerates failing brains. And I was like, it makes a lot more sense when Janice explains it, but okay. But yeah, just all of these really crazy like things where they're manipulating people around to sink the building, and that is crazy. So the only thing is we haven't really talked about. We did mention it. We kind of went over it quickly. Yeah, it was Franklin's death scene, because it is iconic. Even with the terrible CGI, it's a great moment of just, this huge monologue about his dark past, and that they keep mentioning what happened in the Alps, and he survived this avalanche, and you go to find out, it's like, oh yeah, 7 of us survived the crash, 5 of us made it out of there. You do the math. Like,
yeah,
I wanted to know the rest of the story. Did they eat them?
Me too.
I think that's where he was going with that.
That's what I thought. Like, I thought it was the alive scenario.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I'm assuming that they ate them, but like the fact that they, we're never going to talk about this ever again. Mm-hmm. Sounds good, man. Like that's probably a good plan.
I'm still trying to figure out how he like talks about like, so like, almost like leaning towards like, I've eaten people in survival scenarios. And then to go from that to be like, so we all just need to stick together and we can work together to get through this. Like,
yeah, we are not going to turn on each other.
People?
Yeah. Exactly.
I don't know if I want to work together with him anymore.
It's definitely not going to endear him to anyone.
That's some dark shit, man.
Yeah.
Like, like, don't get me wrong, we fucked with some sharks.
Yeah.
You fucking ate people, man.
Oh, yeah.
We are not on the same level. But it is funny. He somehow turns that into this like speech about, so we just need to hold together and work together as a team, and we're going to boom. And then just wham, out of nowhere, he gets grabbed and pulled down. And it's one of those, like, they wanted just the craziest shock value. Like, how do you pull in a superstar actor that everybody expects to be the big deal, and then halfway through the movie, just take him out mid monologue? Like,
I feel like this was, yes, absolutely, Alien did it.
Yeah.
I'm not gonna say better, but they did it first. And and this movie had, was inspired to do that. But I think that this led to a lot more of that. A lot more of like, in the 2000s, where people were willing to, big stars were willing to be in a movie for a short period of time. Mm-hmm. And hey, they're a big build actor, and then they either disappear or get killed. Like there was one character in Burn After Reading that's like a big star and just gone at like the 40-minute mark, and you're just like, whoa. I thought this guy was, sorry, it's a guy, was going to be around for a while. But I think a lot of, inspiration was drawn from, I think that Renny Harlin's choice to do this based on Alien really kind of pushed other directors to say, oh, it's okay. It's not, we're not going to be the people ripping off Alien. We're going to be ripping off Deep Blue Sea. Yeah. And a lot of the inspiration came elsewhere.
Yeah. Yeah, but I think we covered most of the other shark stuff. Other than there's the one line between Preacher and Carter at the end. He says, "Are you sure there was only 3 sharks?" And he's like,
that was like the first smart thing anybody ever said. Like, are you sure? Yeah. You know what? That's better, man. Get your feet out the water.
Yeah.
Yeah. But then I was thinking after that, because I was like, well, I don't know, because they made 2 more sequels, so Maybe not, but then you said, if there's some research, whatever, apparently the sequels are like completely unrelated to this instance anyway. So
they're standalone, connected to each other, but standalone. They don't have anything to do with this one.
Mm-hmm. But yeah, that was my number one. We talked about most of it, but just other notes. But yeah, Greg, do you have any other extra notes to talk about?
So I do want to talk about. Can you guys explain to me how a car battery killed the shark?
No.
I mean, like I didn't like I.
Like it was like wired to the wire.
I get it. I get that there was gunpowder. It was like 2.5 sticks of dynamite, or the equivalent of 2.5 sticks of dynamite. So you have to hit the car battery, and like it ended up with a very Jaws like explosion at the end, which I mean was really cool. And you saw all the chum, I guess shark chum, floating around in the giant like the nuke explosion epicenter of in the ocean. Which again, I thought that was actually really cool. Like I assume that it was a practical effect, and I thought just reminds me of Tropic Thunder and just blowing a bunch of shit up just to make it look really cool. I thought it was really very enjoyable. I did like the quickness of the sharks in general. I meant to look it up how fast can sharks actually swim. But like they got some fucking speed on them.
Yeah.
They didn't just increase their brains; they increased the shit out of their muscles. And like I said, they became like Pake said, they became super sharks. And their capability to establish speed, like acceleration, very very quickly. Like, when Scoggins died, it was very very quick. When Susan died, it was very very quick. I thought that the Franklin death was not super quick, but it wasn't like quick in the water. But yeah, like the each of the death scenes. So we had the shark die as in the oven, like we talked, or not in the oven, but from the oven, like we talked about, from the electricity, like we talked about, and then the dynamite, or the equivalent of dynamite. But like each of the death scenes were very fast.
Yeah.
For the people, except for Janice. Janice was very, very slow. And I was just like, oh God. And then like, you're just watching all the water be red down below. Just like, oh, but, yeah, that was like, I thought that they were really cool. Let me see my last of my notes that we haven't talked about. The Chimera Company, which, if you're not familiar with a chimera is the head of a lion, the body of a lion. Sorry, the head of a lion, the body of something. I can't remember. Head of a human. I don't know. It's like 3 different animals put together. The tail of a scorpion. Maybe I'm thinking of something else. Anyway, the chimera is a bunch of is like 3 or 4 different animals mixed together into one particular animal. And the fact that the company was called Chimera, I was like, oh, all right. Yeah, we're just kind of hinting at what's to come.
Yeah. I don't know if I should trust a company with that name with animal genetics.
So we're
probably not.
No genetic modifications. Chimera Company? Nah, never. And then that's pretty much all I got. I do have some quotes that I liked, but
nice, and we'll get to that. So, Daphne, any extra notes?
Nope, just my production stuff.
All right. Well, then my other quick notes. We didn't talk about Carter a whole lot. Carter Blake is Thomas Jane's character. He works there with Aquatica. He's more of like the shark wrangler that they've hired. Basically, because that's what we see him as one of the test sharks had escaped. And that's what we see at the very opening of the movie with the people on the boat. And so he goes back to bring it in. But he's, very like in tune with these sharks. We see him kind of swimming with it, and he pulls the license plate out of its mouth. And he's like, he's swimming around with it, and he's talking to Samuel L. Jackson's character. He's talking to Franklin, and it's like basically like they're not man-eaters like people think they are. They're not. They don't really actually like the taste of human. Of course, these super sharks kind of develop that, and they're a little more aggressive.
These do,
but typical sharks don't. And which I like that he's kind of breaking some of those like stereotypes that are like movies and stuff like this have created in a lot of people. But he's not very fond of Franklin. He's very like right off the bat. He's like, yeah. So he's like, they really just, if they're going to take a bite out of you, think they're a fat seal or some rich guy in a suit. Like, he's already giving him shit, which I think is fun. But yeah, he never really cared for him too much. But he's also really smart and adaptive too. I like that when he realizes that they're kind of pack hunting him, that he takes off his like wetsuit and the, air tank and all of that and sets it up to make it look like he's somewhere working on it, to where the shark then attacks that, and then he is able to tranquilize it from behind.
He pulled a reverse clever girl.
Yeah, exactly.
Yes, he did. Yes, he did.
He's what Murdoch. That's what Murdoch should have done. Murdoch, right? That was the character.
Yeah,
I think so. Anyway,
yes.
Yeah, that's what he should have done. He should have. I mean, and he tried. He set the decoy, but anyway, yeah. I liked Carter's. I mean, I love Thomas Jane. I really enjoyed him in The Sweetest Thing, which is one of my favorite chick flicks with like something about Mary undertones. If you guys haven't seen it, I highly recommend it. Right. It is a raunchy chick flick.
Nice.
Before like Bridesmaids and whatnot, but
they came together. That's a good one that I really.
They came together. Oh, I don't know if I saw
that's
that.
The purpose. Movie. That's the purpose. It's. I want to say it's Paul Rudd and Amy Poehler.
Oh, I will have to check that out.
It's hilarious.
Yeah, I'll have to check that. They came together. I'm writing that down. But yeah. So I would say he was. Carter was super acrobatic. I guess this is a note that I had. People had a lot of leverage for being underwater and not having anything to push off of. Like there was a lot of leverage.
He did that like in that final shark. He does this weird flip thing over onto its back as it's attacking him. And I'm like, that you wouldn't be able to pull that off.
Like this is. I mean, this is very specifically like I don't get me wrong. When the one with the tiger shark at the beginning, I thought was cool. I also was like, no fucking way that works. Maybe it does. Maybe Jet Li or somebody like that can pull that off. Also, he was underwater for a long fucking time on several occasions.
Yeah.
Like when Scoggins is like, hey, I thought you were going to come back for me. He was underwater for like 2.5 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
I was like, good God. Like this guy's, I mean, he only had to scream when Whitlock like floated in front of his face. It's just like, whoa.
Yeah. Yeah. Those were my last notes. I was going to say like, there's like 2 scenes back to back there that are probably the most disturbing to me in the movie, which is again, like Whitlock's body just still being there, just like drowned. I was like, that's fucked up. And then Scoggins again, because I love Rappaport so much, but then his death is like so quick. But then you get that like scene where it's like his foot, like the shoe comes off and his foot's still like twitching. And I was like, that is so disturbing, but I kind of love it.
That absolutely was. You're like, oh, does it actually do that? Oh. Yeah, I did find it weird that they had to keep going back to the same places, right? So they kept having to go back to the open lab or the open sea lab or whatever. I think I got confused on the map because like where the sub was that not the open sea lab?
Yeah, it was a different room, I think.
But yeah, it got confusing after a while.
The layout was a little
like we have to go down to go up. Okay, sure, I understand getting on a sub and going out 2 at a time. Got it. Mm-hmm. Although these are some big ass fucking sharks. I don't know how the sharks fucking knocked the sub into the goddamn water.
Yeah. Like,
good on them, I guess. But
they were very smart. Remember that.
Oh, very smart.
Very smart.
Yeah. Like, sorry, I didn't mean to hijack your notes.
Oh, you're good.
But yeah, that was a good one. And yeah, Carter was very entertaining. And I mean. How about the crew returning? Like, oh, it's the weekend crew guys coming back.
Yeah,
like
they have no idea what's going on. Like, coming in, what the fuck?
Do you not see the giant smokestacks in the? Why aren't we sending out rescue fucking boats instead of like? Yeah. Oh no, we can't reach them at all. Yeah, whatever. I'm sure they're fine. We'll just head back to work on Monday morning. Come on.
Yeah. No. Yeah, there is no place of work anymore. Yeah. It has been destroyed.
Yeah,
they were just having a cookout. Yeah. That's what that was. Let's go in and see what they're doing.
Oh, they were doing a birthday party. That's right.
Yeah.
All right, so that's all of my notes. So Daphne, I know you didn't have any extra notes, but you do have some fun production notes that you can jump into.
I do have some fun production notes. Renny Harlin said this was the hardest film he ever worked on, which I thought was very telling. The production team built sets above the large water tanks that had been used for Titanic, and some of the sets were designed to look so that they could be submerged. And then others were built on sound stages, like fish tanks full of water that could be used as windows to make things look like they're underwater. Yeah. The sharks, as we talked about, were either animatronic or CGI. The animatronic shark was 26 feet, which was 1 foot longer than Spielberg's shark from Jaws. And I bet, as I said earlier, I bet it worked a heck of a lot better than the one they used on that movie.
Mm-hmm.
As a contrast to Jaws, the sharks were shown much more frequently. Also, you notice the license plate that Blake took out. It's actually the same license plate that was used in Jaws. And in the final Jaws homage, all 3 of the sharks were killed in the same 3 ways in the first Jaws films. The first shark was blown up by our good friend Preacher. The second shark was electrocuted, much like Jaws 2. And the third one was incinerated, like in Jaws 3. They were, director paid some tribute to the granddaddy of all shark movies.
Well, yeah, when you come in making a shark movie like this, you have to be careful. And so he was kind of tongue in cheek, being like, "Yeah, no, a lot of people are going to think I'm just trying to make, a Jaws ripoff. Like, oh, this is just Jaws, but not Jaws." But
yeah,
then he has his own twist on it. But he was like, "But I know what people are going to think, so I'm going to throw a lot of Jaws things in here just for fun."
Absolutely. Samuel L. Jackson was actually offered the role of Preacher, but his team didn't like the idea, so they created the role of Russell Franklin just for him, because Harlan had worked on The Long Kiss Goodnight with Samuel L. Jackson, wanted him to be part of the film, and Samuel L. Jackson had such a great experience working with Harlan on that film, so it was kind of a match that had worked previously.
I forgot that he was in Long Kiss, or not that he was in it, but I forgot what a good movie Long Kiss Goodnight was with Gina Davis and Samuel Jackson. Like, that was really, really good. And I could totally see, and I mean, whether they created Franklin or not, I thought Samuel Jackson absolutely killed the very haughty,
yes, he did.
Rich guy in a suit with a dark past. I thought he was fantastic at it.
I think he kills just about every role he has. He always seems to dive in and just become that character. And you know that if he's in a movie, he's going to give it, 100%. It's going to be an authentic performance from him. And as we talked about earlier, he was the marquee name for this. Most of the others were relatively unknown or not as, well known as he is. So we already talked about LL Cool J. They used 2 parrots in the film, but they didn't have very much money. So they went the route of, they picked one who could fly and one who could sit on LL Cool J's shoulder. And so they used those 2 because they couldn't afford a fully trained one. Like a Hollywood parrot. So
it was not a professional parrot.
Yeah, not a professional parrot. And the last things that I have are 14 different visual effects houses worked on the film Sharks, and Edge Innovations was responsible for the animatronics. And that is all that I have, because a lot of what I had in my notes we've already talked about.
All right. We get to go into some of our favorite quotes that we pulled from the movie. I have a few, but Greg, why don't you kick us off with your favorites?
So my... I kind of touched on it earlier, but beneath its glassy surface, a world of gliding monsters. But who's the real monster? Which I thought was kind of it was cool at the beginning, and then by the end of the movie, if you rewatch it, and you're like, oh, these motherfuckers. I'm trustworthy from Michael Rappaport. the three things that the parrot said was, eat me asshole, which he did right before the shark ate him. Hey, you dickhead. And, fat butt. And those are his quotes. Samuel L. Jackson's at the beginning when they were talking about it from the helicopter. Aquatica was, in fact, basically just Alcatraz floats.
Oh,
that's all I got.
All right, Daphne, what about you?
All right, so mine are more like little conversations. I already used one, which was our good friend, a preacher, when he was stuck in the oven. So my first one is Susan is explaining why. Susan tells the group what she and Whitlock had been up to, and she tells Blake that he wouldn't understand why it was so important to do the research. And so Blake responds with, dumb old Carter wouldn't understand that you used us, that you used me, someone on the water who wouldn't make waves, someone who wouldn't ask too many questions because he had something to lose. And he followed it up with, you've taken God's oldest killing machine and given it will and desire. You've knocked us to the bottom of the goddamn food chain. Yes, absolutely. True.
So, to be fair, I stopped taking notes right about the time where the helicopter exploded everything because I was so into the movie and I didn't write down anything else. Because I was very deliberate, like that first half hour or so. But once all the explosions happened, and I was like trying to not just pay attention, but I was soaking in the movie. Like I didn't go back and rewatch it again. But yeah, that was that. The God's oldest killing machine quote is awesome.
Yeah. And we've already talked about Franklin's little inspirational speech and talked about the important or the noteworthy parts of that. So I'm not going to repeat it. So Pake, bring on your quotes.
So let's see. Mainly, yeah, you the oldest killing machine one I did have because I did think that was really fun. But then I like Preacher when he's walking through the hallways, when everything's kind of shifting after the initial explosion and stuff. And water's starting to kind of leak here and there. And he's like talking to God. And he says, all right. Okay. If this is a lesson about the drinking, let's just say I've learned it. No need to get all carried away, showing me your vengeful side. I know your wrath.
And he throws the bottle, too.
He does. He just tosses it aside. Yeah. And then the last one that I had that I really liked was kind of at the end of the movie where Susan and Carter are sitting there. And Susan says to him, we have to kill her. And Carter looks at him, now that's the first real smart thing you've said all day.
I knew you'd bring the funny ones.
Yeah.
Can I take my dime back? So I have one last quote, and it's
all right.
What they are saying right before, as the water is filling up and they are equalizing pressure before they go up. They start to say the quote of, and yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I shall fear no evil, because I'm the meanest motherfucker of the valley, and I'm carrying a big goddamn stick, or something like that. It was the end of it. Yes. I'm the meanest motherfucker in the valley was definitely in there, and then I was just like, I remember that, and I was like, oh man, I forgot about that because that was that one really gave me chills as it was going on.
I almost went and took that one down too, where he kind of switches that up a little bit.
Yeah,
it is fun. Well, awesome. Well, I think we have nothing left to really cover other than our rankings themselves.
Yes. And, let me just say this. I think Paige should go first because this was the first time he'd seen that movie.
Oh, man. I don't know. We just had such a fun time talking about this movie. Do you really want me to do my ranking first and bring it all down?
No. Why don't we let Greg, since he's our guest? I'm thinking that I'd like to go last.
I'm willing to go. I'm willing to go first. So I picked this movie. I enjoy this movie. It is one of those ones that I like. Really, is it Jurassic Park? No, it is not. But it is fun. Like for a scary movie, it is fun. There is stuff to enjoy. I as far as like entertainment value, I would be like, oh, in like the 8s, but I can't do that for the actual like rankings, right? So, I don't know how many decimal points you guys end up going, but like initially I was like, okay, so I'd have to put this at like a 6.68 because like it's not up there. There were some issues and whatnot, but it was such an enjoyable experience looking back. And in all honesty, like talking about stuff through it, it just makes me like, I hated Austin Powers, The Spy Who Shagged Me, until I was talking about it with my friends, and I was just hysterically laughing at all of the funny things that were said in the movie. And talking about this and talking your way through it just makes you enjoy it more. But yeah, I would say like a 6.7 ish.
All right,
Nice.
that's good.
Well, then I'd feel less bad about where I was at, so that's good.
Oh boy.
Well, no, it's because like, I've talked about like, for some reason I go into these rankings looking at it as like a letter grade from school, where usually anything under a 7 is failing to me. I don't know why I do that. So with that in thought, because there's a lot of like really dated CGI stuff, and some of the science stuff just doesn't really work if you're trying to follow it, but it was really fun, so I let it sit right on that cusp, and I landed right at a 7 on mine. So I gave it, I was like, yep, it passes. It was very well worth watching.
All right. Well, I enjoyed it as well. I'm so glad, Greg, that you picked this one, because it gave me an excuse to go back and rewatch it, because it's not one that I watch very often, but every once in a while I'll watch it. It's not one of my go-tos, like, if I need something on in the background, although I'm not sure why it isn't, because it kind of fits that same protocol. I came in at a 7 on this one. I'm pretty happy with spending the time watching it, and I will watch it again at some point in the future. I don't know that I'll ever watch the sequels unless we cover them. Sometimes you have to leave them alone.
Oh, absolutely. I don't think that this would be covered by How Did This Get Made or anything like that. But I don't think it's a bad movie. But it definitely had its quirks, and it does. In fact, I think specifically even beyond the CGI, like the technic or the tech really just kind of shows, we're using floppy disks, and that was the one thing that like they were probably like, oh well, this is like, computers gonna be around forever. There's no way we're gonna have computers the size of our pinky nails or whatever. But yeah, like it was like that sounds right. 6.7 to 7. Like, I think that is a fair rating for a movie that is enjoyable.
Oh, cool. Perfect. Oh, my. Sounds like the feedback phone is going off.
It is.
All right. We're going to have to see what people have to say about it. All right. We got a little bit of feedback this week. I'm excited. We've got 2 messages, one from Facebook, one from email, and then we have our wonderful patent pending live Steving, maybe, hopefully, or Steve voicemail. I'm always excited to get to that. But yeah, let's go ahead and get through to these first messages. Greg, why don't you take this first one?
All right. From Damien Vitale. Vitale. First time I saw this movie, I was shocked and disappointed when Samuel L. died. Has to be one of the most shocking movie deaths. Carter is a total badass. He definitely makes my zombie apocalypse dream team. And I can't make an omelet without thinking of Preacher describing the perfect way to make it. With 2 eggs, not 3.
Thanks, Damien. Agreed. Carter is a total badass.
Yes.
All right. I'm going to take the next one. We got an email this week from Kimora Lamotte. And thanks for reaching out to us, Kimora.
Yes.
Her comments are, I absolutely love this movie. It is severely underrated. I watch it at least a couple times a year, and it never gets old. So much suspense, a great storyline, and Samuel L. Jackson's epic monologue in, quote, that scene. It's simply the best. I don't care that people silently judge me when I tell them this is one of my favorite movies. LOL. They've unfortunately remade this movie twice, and none of the remakes can hold a candle to the original. And how is it that remakes from 2018 and 2020 both look worse than the 1999 original? Deep Blue Sea is an absolute classic.
I 100% agree with you, Kimura. I mean, this is like, basically this should be, I think, required viewing during Shark Week.
Yes.
Yes.
This and Jaws. I mean, Jaws, obviously, it's a classic. It is a wonderful movie. This one's not quite on par with that, but as far as a fun shark movie, you can't really beat it.
This one's great.
No, definitely. And you know what, Kimura? There are some movies that we're going to be covering in the somewhat near future that are my guilty pleasure films that a lot of people judge me about too. So I'm really curious if some of them are your favorites as well. So keep watching the feed.
Yeah, we hope to hear again from you real soon. Thanks for writing in. And then, of course, we do have the voicemail, like I mentioned earlier. So we do get to hear from our good friend, Steve Brown.
And this is what good old Steve has to say.
Hey, Pake and Daphne, this is Steve. I just started Deep Blue Sea. It's been a while since I watched this movie, so I don't know. I'm not sure how much commentary I'll have on this one. Is this the one where the sharks are like super intelligent or something like that? I didn't look up the description of it. I just started it. Is it like the lion and the mouse and the paw thing? The shark's going to like him now because he took the license plate out of his mouth? They're feeding sharks to other sharks? Bad dream, or she doesn't want to be lobotomized. This is really tense with the helicopter, and I don't remember what happened with this. I think you need to get out of that room. While LL Cool J is monologuing here, I guess he's done. I'm going to pause this. I wanted to answer your question from last week about Monster Hunter and the whole first aid thing. I was in the military 20 years, and we had, we would go to first aid classes every couple of years. So we all had a rudimentary understanding of first aid. But remember, her team was they were like special forces rangers. So they have even more training as far as combat and probably rendering aid. So Sharkovision, and the bird did ask to be eaten. Wow, it seems that LL Cool J just killed one of the sharks. As terrible as the scene is, it always makes me laugh when Samuel L. Jackson is in the middle of his whole speech and gets... Sometimes the answer you get isn't the answer you want. That's a hard pill to swallow, too. Hey, how did the shark not get Thomas Jane right there before he opened that door? I mean, it literally has gotten everybody else it's gone after. I guess he's Thomas Jane. So,
I agree, Steve.
And shark number 2 killed by a woman in her bra and panties. I'm for it. He just said the title of the movie, mic drop. Well, I'm glad. That was a good ending. I always remember the LL Cool J survived. I just didn't remember all the details. And so that was a fun rewatch. And can't wait to hear you guys talk about it. All right, later.
Awesome. Thank you, Steve. That was a great one. Loved it. Love your live Steving. I think we're going to definitely have to have that the official name. It was great. And yeah, thanks for your background as well for the other stuff. I remember asking about that movie. So that was actually really interesting. I'm glad to know that. And, Greg is here. He's got military history as well. So
yeah, the first aid is very, very minimal. Like there are people who can do field medic stuff, but like I'm on a submarine. Like if we're going down, we're going down. It's done.
You can't put a Band-Aid on it?
If a Band-Aid or a butterfly bandage isn't going to fix it, then you can belt it up and cut it off. Other than that, I'm pretty much wasted.
All right, that's good to know.
Mm-hmm. So don't look towards Greg unless you're ready to be amputated.
Basically, yeah.
That's awesome. Well, thank you so much, everybody who sends in your feedback. Always love hearing it. And of course, if you would like to send us feedback again or for the first time, there's always a couple of ways you can do that. You can hit us up on Facebook at our Facebook page, facebook.com/runforyourlivespodcast. You can email us like Kimura did this week at runforyourlivespodcast@gmail.com. You can find us on Twitter at RFYL Podcast and Instagram at Run for Your Lives Podcast. And if you're enjoying the show, make sure to tell your friends, share the love. You can send anybody to our website at runforyourlivespodcast.com, and that will give you links to all of those social medias, plus all of the podcast players. We're on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, Audible, Pandora, YouTube, pretty much anywhere you can think to find us, we are there. And if you're on Apple Podcasts, give us a review, give us 5 stars, make us feel so happy and loved. We appreciate it. Of course, I'll give a couple of shout outs to things that are going around in the podcast universe around us. Strange Indeed is on hiatus for a little bit, just waiting for stuff to come up. I think we have a really good plan for something that we'll definitely be doing in the summer. And we might do some stuff before that, but it's not guaranteed. But definitely be, if you listen to Strange Indeed and are following that, just keep checking your feed every now and then, and hopefully something will pop up soon enough. But we're just, Rima's taking a little break, and I've got this and other stuff going on. So, it'll be there whenever you need it eventually. You can always check out Steve and our friend Mark over on Panels to Pixels. Right now they are covering the Disney Plus original Falcon and Winter Soldier. And then also Mark and our friend Jamie are covering Invincible, the Amazon Prime animated series.
Yes, Falcon and Winter Soldier is so good.
It really is.
It really is.
And then last week I mentioned with Walking Dead cast that, since Walking Dead was over, I wasn't sure what was going on. But then as soon as I said that, we sent the podcast, I was like, oh, duh, I'm stupid. Fear is back on. So they are covering kind of the back half of Fear the Walking Dead right now. So if you're watching that, you can check into that. It's not for everyone. It has its ups and downs. Greg's making faces at me as I'm trying to promote Fear coverage. But he's like, anyone.
I mean, they're covering it for now.
Yeah.
Well, Reba and Jason did a really great job this week with that episode.
Oh, they really did. It was absolutely, It was great.
It was such a rough episode. And then I mentioned Mark for Panels to Pixels. Also, his other podcast, Adrenaline Cinema, just recently released an episode with him and our friend Jerry talking about the 1977 film Sinbad and the Eye of the Tiger. So if you're a big action movie buff and kind of classic action movies like that, definitely check out Adrenaline Cinema. And then our friend Derek on TV Podcast Industries just wrapped up their coverage of Pennyworth, and they are also covering Falcon and Winter Soldier over there. They do a lot of comic book stuff as well, so check that out.
And we always encourage you to check out both of the podcasts that are doing the same show, because you get a different take on what you've seen.
Yeah.
So it's kind of neat.
It really is. And speaking of what's coming up on podcasts around the bend, Daphne, why don't you tell everybody what's coming up next week right here on Run for Your Lives?
All right. Well, next week we are going back to the Titans. We're going to be discussing a film that was actually released in theaters and on HBO Max on March 31st. In fact, it's still in theaters. This doesn't happen. This may be the first time it's actually happened for us. But we're going to be talking about Godzilla vs. Kong, which is the 4th and possibly final film in Legendary's MonsterVerse series. Pake and I have lots of thoughts on this, and we're looking forward to bringing it to you next week.
Absolutely. So get your thoughts and feedback and stuff in, and we'd love to hear what you thought about. It's a big blockbuster. It's kind of the first big blockbuster we've had since pandemic times. So it'll be cool.
Having to be super vague, though, because I don't want to give anything away.
Mm-hmm.
So there's no, huge amount of... there's no large bundle of information available in that.
Yeah. All right. Well, once again, Greg, thank you so much for coming and joining us this week to talk Deep Blue Sea. It was a blast.
Yes, it was.
Yeah, it was a real good time. I appreciate it.
Well, I would say if there's anything you want to plug, usually is the time, but I know there's not a lot going on. You've done, I said the only podcast you really had is you did a Dispatches from Elsewhere podcast, but that was like a Patreon thing through Podcastica. So unless you're a Podcastica fan, there's not really a way to hear that.
Yeah, I've guested on a couple, but no, I don't really have anything that I'm on regularly. I hope to be able to get back at some point or another. Look forward to a couple of different things. But thanks for having me so much. And it was a real good time.
Yeah. Well, I guess we can go ahead and tease the fact that Greg will be back here on this podcast before too long, because I know we've mentioned it before, maybe on this podcast. I know I've mentioned it, I think, on Strange Indeed. I gave the spilled the beans a little bit, but I don't know if I talked about it here, but we might have mentioned it as, we're wanting to expand our Jurassic Park, Jurassic World, coverage a little bit. between, while we're still waiting on Dominion to come out. So we are going to be covering the Netflix animated series Camp Cretaceous as well, kind of season, cover the seasons as a whole. And Greg's kind of a big fan of those. So we figured, why not invite him to come on and talk those with us at some points if he can.
They are so good. Both seasons, season 1 and season 2 are so good. Although, bad on me for not realizing. I think it was like halfway through the second season when I realized that the entire first season took place during the events of Jurassic World. And I was like, oh my God, it makes so much more sense now.
Yeah. It's like, do they just have these problems all the time? Why are these?
Yeah.
Why are they always having these problems? Why are things always going wrong? Well, it all makes perfect sense.
Yeah. So we'll definitely love to have you back for those at some point in the near future.
I appreciate it.
It's going to be fun. We're stretching out our coverage as much as we can because I love dinosaurs. And Jurassic Park is my jam. But with that, we're at the end of our episode. Thanks, everyone, for listening. I'm Daphne.
And I'm Pake.
And I was Greg. And if you have to run from genetically enhanced sharks with big brains smarter than you, you'd better run for your lives.
Bye-bye.